All right, we'll just wait a couple more minutes while everybody is trickling in here, and we'll get started right at 10 o'clock. All right, let's get started. My name is Quentin McKinley, and I'll be your moderator for today during this session. Uh, we will be recording this for future use. If you do have your microphones on, if you could please mute them now, that would be great. If you also are able to use your camera with the internet that you guys have, if you could turn that on for us, that would also be awesome. We are going to be taking questions at the end of this discussion. If you do have a question that's really burning in your mind and is pertinent, you can put it in the chat function and I'll be monitoring that as we go along. So without further ado, we'll get right into this session, which is about emergency management. I'd like to introduce Lesley Porter from Region 1 and Ryan Baker Dunn from Region 3.
All right. Thank you so much, Quentin, and welcome all. Welcome to day 3. You all are making it. And welcome to our session. Hope you had a good time in rules, regulation, and enforcement with earlier this morning. Really important stuff. I apologize in advance. We're doing emergency management today. It's the day 3. It's a little dry. We can't quite capture the magic of some of the other presentations, but we're going to try our best. We will be putting out some trivia questions, though, throughout the chat, and the park that gets the most questions right or gets the closest, we have some vintage Vermont State Parks postcards that we will be sending out to the winning park. So with that being said, be active in chat and make sure you're putting in an answer on every question. Can't win unless you play. And I will just say a good amount of this session is recorded. We just wanted to get the information as accurate as possible. We'll be taking a couple breaks throughout just to follow up on some stuff and to do a little demo. But we'll be jumping in here. So first off, before we jump in, your first trivia question is, last year in the 2020 season, how many times do you think emergency services were called to the Vermont State Parks statewide?
And I'd just like to say hi. I work in Region 1 in the regional office, but before I had this position, I was a park manager at Branberry and Half Moon. And I recall when I first started, I was, just terrified that, I would have these emergency situations. And I just wanted to let you know that we don't expect you to be the cops, the fire department, and EMS all at once. Your role in all of this is really just to help smooth things along, and call the proper people. So we don't want you to think that all of this is on you. It's all about managing the scene.
All right. Beautiful. Well said, Lesley. So without further ado, we'll jump into it and enjoy.
The goal of this session is to impart the following skills and knowledge onto you. First, we want to teach you how to begin to plan for emergencies in parks. We cannot go through every type of emergency and how to handle it, but we can teach you how to think critically about the emergencies you're likely to encounter in your parks. Secondly, we're going to give you the tools to stay calm and respond to any type of emergency. We'll go through where to find information, preparing in advance for emergencies, and building relationships with emergency services in your area. Finally, we're going to talk about the documentation and debrief phase, which is a crucial part of any incident or emergency. Not only does documentation protect you, your staff, and the state from liability, it also helps us track incident reports so we can look at what kind of emergencies we're encountering and be better prepared for them in the future. As I mentioned, a big part of this course is to give you the tools to evaluate your park and think about the type of emergencies that you might face. Connecting the public with nature is one of our core goals as a state parks organization. We do our best to minimize risks without completely sterilizing the visitor experience. One of the wonders of Vermont State Parks is the diversity of the park experiences that we offer. This also presents challenges, as each park is unique when it comes to emergency management. For example, Smuggler's Notch State Park will have to coordinate with Stowe Mountain Rescue and may have to deal with hypothermia, lost hikers, and slips, trips, and falls. On the other hand, Sandbar State Park is unlikely to have any of those lost hikers, but there is a risk of water-related incidents, sunstroke, and automobile accidents. As you set up the park in the spring, take note of any entrances, exits, and various hazards. Do you have a lake, a busy road, campfires, a mountain for hiking? All of these resources present different difficulties that will result in different emergency management. One of the first things that you should be doing, if you have not already, is taking an inventory of the safety equipment in your park. Check that your fire extinguishers are inspected, showing full, and have the appropriate tag and clip on them. Make sure that the fire extinguishers are dispersed around the park as soon as possible. Check that your first aid kits are well stocked, including with face masks and in the appropriate locations. Become familiar with where your PPE is located and make sure each station is well stocked for staff. Check the location and function of all smoke and carbon monoxide detectors and alarms. We do not allow for the removal or tampering with of fire alarms, even in staff housing. Review the necessary emergency information in your park. Become familiar with section 620 in the Parks Management Manual, which is the emergency management section, and read through your park's operations plan and emergency manual if you have them. Every region does it differently, so check with your regional staff to see what resources you have available to you. You should also make sure your emergency phone lists and posted information, which we'll go into later, is up to date. Call and introduce yourself to local emergency services, police, fire, EMS. Highly recommend having them come out in the parks for a walk around. That will familiarize them with the park, and they'll also be able to tell you about the types of emergencies they've faced in the past. Maybe valuable information for you to have. Finally, once your staff comes on, talk with them about emergencies in parks. Go over procedures, again, from section 620, practice drills, and go over safe equipment use, such as fire extinguishers, radios, and scene safety. Assess their skill level so you know who you want in what role during an emergency. Some staff will have some medical training that you can take advantage of. Others may be better utilized in other situations, in the contact station or directing traffic.
It's important that you have these two documents posted at your park in case of emergencies. They contain important phone numbers, how to find park staff in the event of an after-hours emergency, and directions to the nearest hospital. These should be completed and posted in the contact station for you and your staff. And this one on emergencies should also be placed outside of the contact station or on a prominent bulletin board nearby for the public to utilize in the event of an emergency. This way they can find their way to the hospital quickly without having to track down staff to ask how to get there. It would also be a good idea to print out directions to the closest hospital to have on hand as needed. These posters can be found on the staff website in the Department of Human Resources posting section. Types of emergencies in parks. This can be found in section 630 of your park management manual. For medical emergencies, call 911 immediately if the injury is severe. Provide first aid within the scope of your training, comfort, and personal protective equipment level until help arrives. The injured person should also be wearing a mask, unless doing so would cause further harm. Make sure all staff know where to find your first aid kits. Avoid moving a seriously injured person unless greater harm will be caused by leaving them in place. Whenever possible, have the injured person apply their own bandages or apply pressure to a bleed themselves. Anytime there's a serious injury or death in a park, you need to report this to your park's regional manager as soon as possible. If they can't be reached, contact the Chief of Park Operations or our Parks Director. Fire in parks can come in many forms, from barbecue grills, campfires, forest fires, building or vehicle fires, and even dumpster fires. Now, care should be taken when cleaning fire rings and grills. Make sure ashes are cool before disposing of them. Make sure your fire extinguishers are placed in the correct locations and that they remain easily accessible. In the event of a fire, call 911. Evacuate visitors from the area or park if necessary. In the event of a structure fire, evacuate visitors and employees immediately. Control traffic to allow the fire department access when they respond. Severe weather, thunderstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes, windstorms, flooding can all occur. In 2020, lightning struck twice at Quechee. The National Weather Service issues weather watches and warnings. A watch indicates that conditions exist for severe weather to occur, and a warning means that severe weather is imminent or occurring. If you have a weather radio, keep it in a place where staff will be able to hear it and leave it on. In the event of a weather watch, notify visitors as you see them and post weather information. In the event of a severe weather warning, you will need to notify all park users immediately to take cover and secure personal items. If flooding is occurring or many trees are coming down, you may need to move visitors to a safe location. After severe weather, assess the damage in the park and report down trees and large washouts to your maintenance staff. Accidents can be visitor, employee, or motor vehicle related. The proper inspection and maintenance of the park is the first step towards preventing accidents. If you see something that could be a safety hazard, such as a broken step or loose railing, report it to your regional staff. We can't reduce all risk, but we can minimize it. Accidents will occur, and it will be your role to assist the individual involved and to document the details of the accident. Because of the presence of rabies in Vermont, it's important to record detailed information about all incidents involving animals. If a person is bitten or scratched by an animal, call the police to report the incident. Wash the wound with soap and water for 5 minutes. All animal bites must be reported to the Vermont Department of Health after calling the state police. Pets injured by an animal should be taken by their owner to a veterinarian for evaluation and rabies booster shots. Some parks have encounters with black bears. Take precautions such as securing dumpsters and making sure garbage is not on the ground outside of the dumpsters. Educate your campers, especially if there's been a bear sighting or activity in your park. We'll show you how to notify the appropriate responders for nuisance animals and escalating bear issues a little later. Crime. Vandalism is pretty common in parks. If a facility has been vandalized, you'll need to report it through an incident report, and repairs should be made or scheduled. Repair vandalism as soon as possible to discourage others from joining in. Burglaries could occur. The best way to prevent a burglary is to be diligent about securing the park's property, locking the safe, making frequent bank deposits, locking doors and windows. Make it difficult for a burglar to be successful. A robbery involves a physical confrontation between the offender and another person. Now, if this happens in your park, be cooperative and comply with the offender. Your safety and that of your other staff and visitors is paramount. Call the police and report all instances of crime in your park when it's safe to do so. Lost visitors. Get a description of the missing person, as well as the last place and time they were seen. Also get the name of the reporting person and their contact info should they walk away from you during the incident. Call 911. In the case of missing children, park entrances must be closed and staffed until the child is found or you're instructed to open them by law enforcement. Keep the contact station and park exits staffed, and then all available park staff should help search the common areas of the park. We're not saying that staff should go off combing the woods looking for someone, but checking restrooms, nature centers, playgrounds, and parking areas will help to narrow the search area. Maintain communication with the contact station. When police arrive, provide all details, including where you've looked. Facility and system failures. An example of this would be a water system failure where you no longer have water in the park, which also means you have no bathrooms in the park. Contact your maintenance technician. In the event of an after hours or weekend maintenance problem, follow your regional procedures, which may include using a pager. If the system failure includes losing power and/or telephone service, contact the utility company as well. Your maintenance technician will direct you as to what you should be doing until the system is restored.
I'd like to take a minute to talk about your role in any emergency. One of the most important things you can do in any emergency situation is to remain calm and be the voice of clarity. This takes a lot of practice, but being able to lower the temperature in a situation will help to calm down people and make it a safer, easier environment to work in. Next, you need to determine what response is needed. Do you need to call 911? Again, what's the response time and how long will it take them to get there? If it may take a while, you're going to want to be calling them right away. Then you need to make sure that the scene is safe. Scene safety is a crucial part of any emergency response. Rushing to the scene or going in before you've mitigated any risks could lead to a second victim or injured person, or create the problem even worse. Next, you need to gather as much information as you can. Bring a notepad with you and start to document as much as you can. Not only can you pass this information on to emergency services if they've been called, but you can also save this information for later for the documentation phase. Document the who, what, where, when, and why. The more detailed you can be in the moment, the easier it's going to be later on. Next, manage the scene in the emergency until help arrives. You can post staff at important intersections throughout the park and have them on radio so they can easily communicate with each other. Once emergency services arrive, you can inform responders of the incident and all the information that you previously wrote down while you were gathering that information. Once you have concluded the emergency situation, it's important to debrief with your staff. Not everything is always perfect, so it's good to talk about what you did well, what you can do better in the future. Then it's the documentation phase. Documentation phase, again, is a crucial part of any emergency situation. There are 4 main types of reports that we ask you to fill out. All of these can be found on the State Parks website, right under the COVID-19 updates in the report section, pictured above. The 4 types of reports are the Incident and Nuisance Wildlife Report, which I'll show you shortly. We ask you to fill that out as soon as possible or within 24 hours. Nuisance Bear is an offshoot of that, and Lesley will talk about when you need to do that and how to find out if you have to fill out that report. Workers' compensation is a little bit different this year, but we ask you to fill out any workers' compensation claims, get the process started within 72 hours of any incident happening, if not before. Finally, automobile and property loss is the last type of report that we have you do, and we ask for you to do that again as soon as possible, but at least within the 24-hour period. The incident report is where you'll document all incidents, accidents, and situations that need to be documented for future use. The incident report serves, as I've mentioned earlier, a lot of really important functions. It alerts regional staff of any issues that you may have had in your park. Secondly, it protects you, your staff, and the state from any liability. And it also allows us to document incident for years to come in case there are lawsuits in the future. If we have a well-documented incident report, we can simply hand that over, and that usually can resolve any questions that people have. It's very important when you're filling out the incident report to use clear, concise, factual language. The who's, what's, where's, when, and why of the situation. It's extremely important to avoid any judgment when you're doing the incident reports. Be as objective as possible. We'll understand, based off of reading an incident report, if a visitor or person was doing something that was maybe unexpected or out of the ordinary. You don't need to tell us that this person was being an idiot, for example. We'll be able to garner that from the information as long as it's clear. And a professional incident report will protect us and protect you much better. Remember, the more you write down in the moment while the incident is happening, the the more you'll be able to translate onto the incident report. Here are some examples of some situations that you may need to report in your park. Lesley will mention this later, but keep in mind that sometimes an incident report is not the only report you'll have to fill out. Any serious accidents in the park, either involving park visitors or staff, need to be reported. Any situation where first aid is rendered needs to be reported. Any situation where there's theft, vandalism, and other crimes, someone breaks into the contact station, graffiti, anything like that. Any accidents with state park equipment and vehicles, whether it's a mower hitting a rock and smashing up a blade or backing a truck into a tree. Anytime the park manager has to talk to the same campsite multiple times and evict the campers, or another serious issue involving visitors, will have to be an incident report. Hazardous material spills such as gas or oil will have to be reported. Anytime there's a sewage disposal field failure or another serious maintenance issue, complete an incident report and get in touch with maintenance as soon as possible, whether it's through the pager or through their phone on normal operating hours. And then finally, any incident where someone may complain or possibly sue the state is something that we need to do an incident report form for. In addition, you're going to have to reach out to your operations staff as soon as possible to let them know so we can get ahead of the situation.
The incident report form will ask you to fill in details such as the name of your park, date and time of the incident, whether and what factors were involved. But another very important part of the incident report is the narrative, where you'll explain the details of what happened. And we're looking for full sentences here in plain English, so there's no need for jargon, such as calling someone a perpetrator. You don't have to be fancy with it. But we are looking for as complete of information as possible to explain what happened. So let's look at an example here of a terrible one. Someone was injured at the park. If that's all you wrote in an incident report narrative, that really just doesn't tell us much at all about, who was injured, what happened, did they go to the hospital? So try to be as descriptive as possible. Here's a better example. Joe Schmo broke his leg at the campsite Maple Lean-To yesterday, May 5th at 10 a.m. Joe jumped off the roof of the lean-to while screaming "parkour" and landed on the bench of the picnic table. This paints the picture a little bit better about what happened. It's still not a complete narrative because we don't know, what happened next. But this is a much better description of the injury itself. We want you to only state facts here. So some of us might have some opinions about this young man and what he did, and maybe it's his own fault, that kind of thing. Make sure to leave those out of the incident report.
All right, so we need to continue the narrative here because we do know what happened to Joe, but we don't know how the situation was handled at the park and by whom. So I, Park Manager Michael Scott, called 911 while Park Attendant Kevin directed the ambulance to the Maple Lean-To. Vermont Valley Rescue arrived after about 10 minutes and took Mr. Schmo to the Capitol Hospital. The site was registered to Joe's father, John Schmo. Mr. Schmo's family decided to cut their camping trip short, but said they'd like to come back later this summer, so I issued them a gift certificate for the value of their unused stay. So this, combined with the previous slide, really paints the full picture of what happened in the park, and it gives us all the information that we need. And when you're writing one, you might not have every bit of information like what hospital they went to, but try to gather as many details as you can when you're taking your notes so that you can write a complete narrative. For more complex incidents, it's important to have some time dedicated to writing these. It's not something you want to rush. You'll want to look over what you wrote, make sure it makes sense to someone who wasn't there, and also to someone who might not be familiar with your park. So try not to use like nicknames for bathrooms, and be a little bit more specific about the bathroom closest to this site, that someone who isn't familiar with the park could look at a map and figure out what we're talking about. We have a partnership with the U.S. Department of Agriculture Wildlife Services Division to manage our nuisance wildlife program. Common nuisance animals include geese, beavers, raccoons, skunks, groundhogs, as well as some black bears at a few parks. Documenting all incidents is crucial to the success of the program, as it not only allows the USDA to track nuisance wildlife, but it can be used to justify more aggressive harassment methods should issues persist. In the reports section of the staff website, there's a document called Managing Nuisance Wildlife Flowchart. This is where you should begin when you have concerns about a wild animal in the park. Answer the 6 questions that ask, is the animal a nuisance or an immediate threat? Is the animal acting aggressively, etc.? And based on your responses, it will direct you to the Nuisance Wildlife Report if needed, and will provide info on how to proceed, such as instructing you to contact a game warden. The Nuisance Wildlife Report itself is the same as our incident report. You just select Nuisance Wildlife for report type. You'll be asked questions about how many animals you've seen, what damage they've caused, and details such as the location of the damage. You'll also explain anything you've done up to this point to mitigate the issue and how much staff time is spent dealing with this nuisance. Additionally, there's a link on this flowchart that'll take you to the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Bear Incident Report, which helps them track issues with bears around the state. You'll need to complete this report anytime you have an issue with a bear, in addition to the Nuisance Wildlife Report. If you have any questions about these reports, please speak with your operations staff.
I'm going to take a quick second just to take a break from the PowerPoint and take a quick look at the take a quick look at the new incident report form that we put up. So a lot of work has been put into the incident report form. It's a really intuitive form now. I know Rob Peterson, amongst others, have put countless hours into making it really intuitive and really easy. But we just wanted to give you a quick run through, touch on a couple points for it, and go from there. Before I jump into it, congratulations, both Lizzie Carroll and also Smugs. The actual answer was 90 for that first trivia question. You were the closest with 88, so we will mark that down for now. Again, we will go through after and get the official results before we send out any of the postcards, but keep on guessing. So if you go to the State Parks website, or the State Parks staff website page, vtstateparks.com/staff. I'm sure you've heard it plenty of times. And you go to the reporting section, you'll see under incidents and nuisance wildlife reporting, file an incident or nuisance wildlife report, manage nuisance wildlife. If you click this top one, it's going to bring you right to the incident report database here. So you just select create a new report. You'll also see find incident reports created but not yet submitted. So if we click through here, click OK to create a report, then what you can do is select your park. For today, I'll do Grand Isle, put in your name, your position. So I'll put regional staff, but all the staff positions should be in here. The report date and then the report type. And this is where you select the incident or the nuisance wildlife report. So today we're going to look at an incident report and create it. And then once you go in, you will see the information that you've already populated, the incident date, incident time, the weather conditions. And if you can't find it, you can add a weather condition here. Incident factors, which you can add right here. So, you know, if alcohol was involved, a noise complaint, damage to fire and property, that sort of stuff. And you can add other factors if needed, but if you can, try and select from this list of factors. Describe the incident. This is that incident narrative that Lesley was talking about. This is where you want to be as detailed as possible, where those notes are going to come in handy that you took during the incident. So again, be as descriptive as possible. There is spell check, but you know, just double check your work. Then you can go, was law enforcement called? Yes or no? Was anyone injured? Was park equipment or property involved? And then down here, you've got a couple different options. So you have add the primary person. Primary person is, of course, the person who was injured, the person who was evicted from the park, the person who was causing the noise complaint, that sort of stuff. So you would click add primary person, put their information in here, and click save. You can then add a secondary person, which would be the same thing, but it's anyone that was a witness, anyone that you talk to get more information from. Something new this year for those of you that have been in the incident reporting form before is now we have the ability, both with the incident report and nuisance wildlife, to add photos. We really, really encourage you to take photos of any incident. If there's damage to anything, anything like that, the more photos, the better. It's a really good thing to do. So you just have to hit yes, there were photos taken. You'll see the page refresh, and then you can choose your file and upload. And this does also work from a mobile device as well. Then you have the options right at the bottom to submit the report or to save the report and continue later, which is a really great thing. You can save the report and then you can find your report. So say you're halfway through doing it, you have to run out to deal with something else, hit save report and continue later. You can come back and finish it at another time. That's the gist of it. It's super straightforward. Again, a lot of really good work went into this. And we just can't stress how important good incident reports are. All right, so before we jump back into the PowerPoint here, for a second trivia question, a hint, this number is more than 90. How many incident reports do you think were completed statewide in 2020? All right. We're getting some close answers there. One sec while I just reload this PowerPoint up.
Ryan, no sound.
All right. One second here. Sorry, for some reason I can't share the individual window, but we roll with it. There we go. Sorry about that. All right, sorry about that. You should be good to go.
Yep.
Let me know if you can hear it, Lesley.
No.
All right. I'm not sure why that's not working. I selected the sound that time, but we will give it one more shot here.
Park employees, as well as volunteers who have a signed
Okay.
volunteer agreement, are covered under the state of Vermont's Workers' Compensation Self-Insurance Program. So what should you do if someone is injured on the job? Call 911 if immediate emergency medical treatment is needed. Report the injury to your supervisor, and call our workers' compensation insurer, Corvell, at this toll-free number. This number is provided on our staff website under reports and also in the Park Management Manual, section 640.3. Calls must be made within 72 hours of an injury. However, they should be done as soon as possible. You need to report all work-related injuries or illnesses, even if you don't plan to seek medical care. On the call, a registered nurse will speak with the injured employee to determine the best treatment option, and they'll let you know what facility to go to if you need to see a doctor. After speaking with the nurse, you'll speak to a claims agent who'll ask questions about the employee and their injury. If possible, the employee and supervisor should be together when the call is made so the agent can speak with both. If this is not possible, the employee should call on their own, and the supervisor will need to call the same number as soon as possible to confirm details. After this call has been made, the injured employee should record their claim number that was provided on the call. It will be needed if there are any additional treatment or follow-up needed. The supervisor should complete an incident report to notify regional staff of the injury. Whether the park truck is involved in an accident or a visitor's vehicle is, we have a report for that. And these are available on the staff website reports section. You would need to collect as much information as possible about the accident. If there's an accident in your park, make sure you alert your regional staff. For some accidents, your regional staff might instruct you to contact law enforcement. If this is the case, the vehicle should not be moved from the spot of the accident without approval of the responding officer. Make the vehicle as visible as possible to other traffic by putting on the hazard lights, using road flares, reflective triangles, or traffic cones if you have them. You will not need to complete a form if there's visitor property loss, aka damage to a non-vehicle. If, for example, a branch falls onto their tent or trailer while they're out, rips it, causes rain to soak through everything inside, you would provide the visitor with a link to the state's general liability claim form so that they can submit a claim online if they want. You can find that link needed on the staff website in that same report section. When giving them this link, no statement should be made on whether the state would or would not pay for the damage. Your only responsibility is to provide the link for them so they can submit a claim if they want to.
The following are some considerations to take into mind with COVID-19 and emergency management. You should only be providing care up to the available level of PPE and training that you have. I know this can be difficult at times because the first instinct may be to run up to someone to give them assistance, but you need to get PPE first. Avoid direct contact with visitors if at all possible, and determine if the patient can administer self-care, such as putting on an adhesive bandage or something like that. And if they can, ask them to do so. For CPR, the guidance is ever changing. So for that, and in general, we encourage you to check out the COVID-19 operating plan, which is located on the staff portal right up top.
All right, Quentin, did we have anyone that was correct or get close? I see some, Townsend is very close. I'll have to look through for the closest one. I'm going to call Townsend the closest for now, but I promise I will check. The correct answer was 577.
So not Townsend's 6,789 guess.
Oh, I saw
Yeah,
Townsend
too.
earlier with a higher one. We'll keep digging through the chat and figure it out, but the correct answer was 577 incident reports.
I think we have a 580 in there somewhere and just lost it. Someone else had 580.
Ooh. Well, I don't think we're doing Price is Right rules, so that may be the closest. We will keep digging and get back to you, but a lot of good answers. Excellent. We have a couple scenarios here. While we are still, talking through, feel free to put up what you do in those situations, kind of what your first steps would be. We encourage you to kind of think about it and ask questions. For this next trivia question, which park in the Vermont State Park system do you think had the most incident reports next year? Bonus points if you know how many incident reports that was.
Last year, not next year.
We were coming from our day off and find park attendant Kevin here with the truck. He said he was driving, hurt his wrist. I'd first be concerned about scene safety since the truck is partially in the road. So we'd want to make the truck as visible as possible. You know, hazards are on. Whether you have cones, triangles, or flares, use something to make the truck more visible in the road. Have some staff assist with traffic direction as needed. As you can see, the employee in the picture is barely visible, so wearing a vest would be good for visibility. After we've made the scene safe to prevent any further harm, we should address Kevin's injury since he says he hurt his wrist. So see to it that he gets an ice pack or other first aid needed. Have another employee help you get the truck out of the road so Kevin can attend to his injury. Then we're going to get the vehicle out of the road. Let's say the truck got unstuck very easily. It had a little damage, but there's no visitors, other property, or vehicles involved. So it seems like we won't need to call law enforcement for this. But we will need to collect all information, such as how did it happen, how long was the truck stuck there, and how did the injury to your wrist occur, and what damage has occurred on the truck. After the incident, we're going to need to document a few things. The first thing we should do is call the workers' comp line with Kevin and fill out the verbal form on that. On that call, a nurse will speak with Kevin and tell him, where to go to have his wrist examined. You'll also need to complete an incident report to let regional staff know that something occurred in the park, and an automobile loss report because of the damage sustained to the truck. Imagine it's a busy Saturday at your park. The campground is full, there's lots of picnickers, and a visitor comes up to you at the office and tells you they can't find their 7-year-old daughter. The child was last seen at the restrooms by the playground about 15 minutes ago. So we have a lost child, which is obviously an urgent situation. Quick actions on your part are needed, but remember to stay calm. First, you need more information. Be sure to take notes and ask clarifying questions. We know how old she is, but what was she wearing? Hair color, eye color? It'd be best to keep the parents at the office with you for when the police respond. But just in case, you'll also need the name and contact information for the parent. What's their phone number? Are they camping in the campground? Call 911. Identify yourself, the park, and its address, and give them a brief statement that you have a missing child. Calmly relay the information that you've collected to the dispatcher as they prompt you for it. Radio to alert your staff to drop whatever they're doing because a search is needed. One employee will need to go to the park entrance and close the gate. This is an important step in case of an abduction, when every minute counts and preventing vehicles from leaving could save a life. This employee will need to stay at the gate to explain to visitors that they can't come in or out at this time due to an emergency. This employee will also need to allow the police to enter when they arrive and point them in the correct direction of the office and where the parent can be found. If your park has a secondary entrance or even a boat launch, you'll need to post someone there as well for the same reason. At this point, let's say we have yourself at the office with the parent, and you're by the phone as well as a radio, and you have 2 staff covering park entrances who also have radios, and you have 2 more park attendants and your volunteers on duty. So these folks should search for the child, the 2 park staff and volunteers. Make sure they have a radio or other means of communication to let you know when they've found them. Staff should look in common areas of the park, including buildings, play areas, picnic and parking areas, the campground, etc. But staff are not to start unzipping tents and peeking inside or entering visitor vehicles. If you find the child, take her to the contact station or to law enforcement if they've arrived. When the police do arrive, the incident is now in their hands. Provide what information you've collected and what locations your staff has searched. Provide them with park maps. Lead them to the parent. The police will be the ones to let you know when the gate can be reopened. Your regional staff will want to be alerted to this as soon as it's practical during the situation. They can also provide you and your staff with information on resources to help debrief a stressful event. Talk with your staff after the incident to gather more information and discuss what went well and what could have gone smoother, and possibly tweak your response should it happen again. And finally, you'll need to complete an incident report within 24 hours.
For this scenario, picture that your park has a few mountain bike trails and 3 trailheads. A visitor runs up to you and says that a mountain biker crashed on your mountain bike trail, pretty close to the trailhead. The visitor said that the mountain biker is a male in his 30s and is hurt pretty bad. He was wearing a helmet. So, a little disclaimer before we break this down. I used Half Moon Pond as the example park for the situation, and Half Moon Pond doesn't actually have any mountain bike trails. But the layout of the park made it a great place to talk about some of the challenges that you might be facing. So that's why we're using this map. Okay, disclaimer aside, what are the first things that we need to do in this situation? Are we calling 911 right away? Locating the victim? What's first? So first, we need to get more information. Get as much information as you can from the visitor. Ask some follow-up questions to get a more clear picture of what happened. There are 3 trailheads in this park, located here, here, and here. Does the camper know which trailhead the person was at? Or what campsite they started their hike from? What does hurt pretty bad mean? What is the reporter's name? Where are they staying? And do they know the visitor? Take as many notes as you can to clarify where the injured person is located, their identity, and their conditions. You do your follow-up and you determine that the camper saw them at the trailhead near my campsite, which is Dragonfly, right here. So you probably know it's this trailhead. He was bleeding profusely out of his shin and grabbing at his kneecap. At this point, you know you have to call 911. So do so and have staff try and locate the person. Make sure they have a radio or means of communication to let you know when they have found the victim. For this exercise, I have marked the victim here with this red dot. Remember that the staff need to be aware of scene safety. Don't rush to the scene and risk injury. And is there any reason that they cannot approach the patient? Perhaps that the patient fell into a ravine and climbing down will result in further injury to one of your staff members. Once you are able to get there, provide care to your ability and PPE level and wait for EMS to arrive. Remember to stay calm with the biker and let them know that help is on the way. You'll see that I've put some yellow dots out of the map. These are tricky intersections where you may want to post a staff member, depending on how many staff you have, to help guide EMS efficiently to the scene. You may want to actually give EMS a map if you ever have them come into the park early so that you can tell them exactly where the person is. Once EMS has arrived, taken care of the victim, and transported them away, it's time to debrief with your staff to discuss what went well and what could have gone smoother. For this incident, although it is complex, all you need to fill out is an incident report. And again, please do that within 24 hours.
We hope you've enjoyed today's session, but we realize we've just scratched the surface about responding to and reporting emergencies in your parks. The next steps are up to you to learn where your local EMS comes from, where the closest hospital is, know where first aid kits and fire extinguishers are, and what's inside your first aid kit. Read the management manual, section 600, which covers emergencies. That's available on the staff website. If you have an emergency plan binder, read through that. And your park's operations plan is specific information to your park. That's also going to be great to read. Talk to your regional staff. They might know what incidents are more likely to happen at your park. And finally, share with your staff what to do in different types of emergencies. The park manager may have the experience to handle most problems, but your park attendants also need to know what to do right now without stumbling around to find someone who knows what to do in a situation. And finally, post information in prominent locations in the park, as well as in the contact station. And once you do all that, you'll be prepared for anything. Thank you.
All righty, beautiful. Thank you guys. Closed-toed shoes and long pants. We're not going to count that, although both of those were worn during the.
I have a.
Bert and Alan with the correct guess of 12. So we need to go through and figure out who the postcard winners are, but we will send out an email with the winner and get that off to you. We only have a couple minutes here, but are there any
I have
questions?
one question that I can answer. So Tom asked about allergic reactions from bee stings. If a visitor, specifically asks for certain things to prevent anaphylaxis, can we provide that from our first aid kits? Our first aid kits don't have any medicine in them, so we're not able to provide any medicine at all. If the person has their own medicine, they can take it. If it's something like an EpiPen and they need assistance, you could assist them with injecting themselves, but we can't provide medicine. So in that case, you would call 911. I think we got some more.
So the answer to the park trivia question on who had the most incident reports and how many that was.
It was Grand Isle State Park last year, had 79 incident reports submitted. So about well over 10% of all the incident reports statewide came from Grand Isle last year. Good job. Any other questions here? Is there anything that we missed in the chat?
I don't believe so.
Again, everything, go ahead and read section 600 in the management manual. You might have a binder of that at your park, and if not, it's available digitally on the staff website.
We do have a question, Ryan, where you get one of those hats that you were wearing?
I don't know, actually. I got that hat in Belize because I needed a bucket hat. It's the only one they had. And it's the best one, I'll admit. But I'm sure they're around.
All right, well, our time has come. If there's no other questions, we're gonna give you guys a break before your next thing. That is an awesome hat.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. It's day 3. Thank you for sitting through that, and enjoy the roundtables next. They're going to be a really cool session, and yeah, we will see y'all soon.
Bye, guys.